Hello and welcome to volume 27 of Ask a Brit. That's right, we have joined the 27 Club. We're not dead. This isn't part of that. This is a different 27 Club in which you reach 27 episodes, which we've done. So that's where we are today. And of course, this is the format in which I have you ask any question you like in the comments below using the hashtag AskABrit. And that way I can find your question in the comments for next week's episode. It's been a bit of a strange week again. My cat is now out of the vet, so he's doing just fine and is pissing normally. So I've never been so happy to see somebody urinate in my entire life. And I myself am doing better. I got my blood test back after going to the doctor last week, and it revealed that I had low vitamin D, which is incredibly surprising. I live in Chicago. You'd think I'd get all the sunshine I need, right? I'm being sarcastic for humour purposes. Did you like the way, by the way, that I pronounced vitamin? So the doctor recommended that I take a lot of vitamin D supplements, and I feel better now, though I'm not quite out of the woods, although I have killed a bunch of bears on the way. That metaphor goes against my moral code. But let's get started today. So the first question comes from Pips K, and Pips K asks, now, as a vegetarian, what would you eat beside turkey on Thanksgiving, right? And you can apply this question, I suppose, to Christmas as well. So since I've become a vegetarian, I have had to find new ways of enjoying holidays like Thanksgiving. And so turkey has gone by the wayside, for me at least. Tara still eats it. In fact, had a vegetarian roast. It actually tasted rather like meatloaf, not the singer. That would be weird, perhaps, potentially. Maybe he tastes all right, probably of sweat and hair. But the meat flavour is there, it's just not meat itself. So I tend to eat that. Or if I'm just feeling like a pig, I'll just eat lots of chocolate. And that's usually what I do. There are actually lots of ways to enjoy Thanksgiving without meat. I don't begrudge anybody for eating meat, of course, but this is my choice because I am a savage who likes leaves. All right, next question is from Alexander Does Games. Alexander Does Games says, as a fellow Brit who wants to live in the US, what are the most difficult parts of trying to become a citizen? Do you have to pledge allegiance to the flag? Well, Alexander, I am not myself a citizen, so I've not been through that process yet, but I can certainly speak to being a resident, and I can do it in that old way of speaking that they did in the Victorian age, for some reason. I don't know why I'm doing that. I think the process for me, I've taken on the American way of saying process, as a lot of people have pointed out. The process for me was, there's a lot of paperwork, and I believe this is the case in order to get your citizenship as well. There's a lot of paperwork, and it's expensive. It's not free. And, for citizenship, one of the requirements is that you have to live here under residency status for a number of years. I think is it 3 or 5? I haven't looked in a while, but you do have to go through that process of living here. Process. You may have to pledge allegiance to the flag. I know that you have to pass a test, a kind of civics test, see how good you are with your knowledge of how America works. I haven't done it yet. I've taken a faux test online, and I passed 100%. I think I could do it. I think, in the future I'd have to take that test for real, and I would be a citizen thereafter. Stephen Nolte, has your wife or any other American done the Marmite challenge? I have to confess, Stephen, I myself haven't done the Marmite challenge. If indeed by the Marmite challenge you mean, as I found online, to take a shot of Pimm's and then a spoon of Marmite. I found that on Urban Dictionary. I don't know how true it is. It sounds revolting. I mean, I like Marmite, but to mix the two sounds a bit weird. Tara really likes Pimm's, but I think doesn't care for Marmite, or at the very least doesn't care for Twiglets. So I think one day I might get her really drunk and force her to do it. That sounds really mean, I know, but that's just who I am. It hasn't happened yet, but thank you for putting that idea in my head, Stephen, because Christmas is coming up. Johan Mahoney Berg and Lol's Skits, could be YouTube name of the week, don't know yet, there could be some better ones coming up. Have you ever thought about doing a video comparing UK and American places with the same name? I have news for you. I have already done that video, or at least a very nuanced version of it. Back in the day, I did a video, which I will link to at the end of this video. Just look in the end slides when my outro music hits, and you'll find it. Looking at all those sort of American cities that were named after English cities that have outgrown their English counterparts in terms of population and stuff like that. So check out that video. That's the extent to which I've done a comparison, although on my website at lostinthepond.com, I've looked at sister cities. Now, sister cities of America and England don't always share the same name, of course, but it is interesting just to see which ones have been paired up over the years. So that's good. I have a list of those, and I will link to that in the description at the end of this video. So thank you for that, Johan and lol skills exclamation mark. Jacob Fye, have you ever heard about the Pendel Witches in the UK? And if so, would you do the Pendel Witches walk from Pendel to Lancaster? Jacob, yes, I have heard of the Pendel Witches. My wife and I actually happened upon them, not them. That would be ridiculous. They're from hundreds of years ago. But the story about them, on the side of, what was it, the Golden Lion, I think, the pub in Lancaster, on the side of it has a little story about the Pendel Witches and how they were, taken to the tower in Lancaster and executed. Women were very much treated as second-class citizens and people that could do spells. And I've done the trail too. The wife and I have done the trail, trying to find, different markers and stuff. We bumped into a black cat on the way that just disappeared before our very eyes. I could be making that last part up because it sounds more fascinating. It was a very interesting time. As I've said before, Lancaster is a deeply historical place. I always got this sense about it, actually, Jacob, that it was quite haunted. Not just because of that, but just the whole place gave off that aura. And for my money, it was one of the most exciting parts of it. Joe Jones, how did you come up with the name Lost in the Pond? Good question. So this was a few years ago. It was 2013 is when I launched Lost in the Pond as a blog before I did the YouTube channel 2 years later. And I was sitting on my toilet, I won't go into detail whether it was number 1 or number 2. It was both. And then I was just thinking, what can my blog title be called? I could call it, America versus Britain or The Limey Yank or something that's just very, very, in your face, as it were, as to what it meant. And then I thought, oh, no. Let's refer to the Atlantic Ocean in this, because it's the thing that is between us, right? It's the thing that's between America and England. But obviously the nickname for the Atlantic is the pond. And so I just thought, playing on the phrase of lost in translation, I thought the things that I've lost in the Atlantic between here and there, in other words, things that get confused, different spellings, different pronunciations, words and all of that. And so, I'm still searching the Atlantic for those things, not literally. I'm not James Cameron. But I am Lawrence Brown, and I am every day trying to uncover some of these confusions. Okay, next question comes from Adam Kobowitz, and Adam says, just spent 2 weeks in the UK with my wife. I drove all over England, Wales and Scotland. Lovely historical place. Question, do you feel like people from the UK take for granted all of the history there? I do, Adam, and I think I myself was guilty of that. I think when you live in America, there's a large portion of the America that was formed by Europeans coming over here, doesn't have such an old history. The Native American history, of course, predates all of that by hundreds and indeed thousands of years. And that side of it, of course, you do get this sense of a land very much lived in for that length of time. But with Britain, with the UK, with England, whichever part we want to focus on, I took it for granted. I lived down the road from and was christened at a church that was, 800 years old. I absolutely miss now that kind of architecture. It's sort of staggering to know that there were people from that time that lived down the road from where I grew up, from where I learned to play football. They learned to play whatever sports they played then, spear throwing, that kind of thing. And yeah, it does. It boggles the mind in many ways. So if I were to move back, I would cherish that history with every fibre of my heart. I'm not a doctor or a Time Lord. Next question comes from We Are Insignificant. That might be YouTube name of the week, only because it's true. We Are Insignificant says, at this point, or rather at the point, you end up visiting Arizona, which I can't wait to do. Are you going to visit London Bridge? Might sound like a weird question, that, but in fact, London Bridge, or what was London Bridge, was taken down and repackaged, built up in a place in Arizona, and the photographs are online, and it's absolutely true. I think as a wild businessman decided that he wanted to do that and did. And yeah, if I'm in the area, I would love to check out the old London Bridge and close my eyes and just open them and look at the bridge and think, yay, cool, I'm in, olden day London, and then look around and see mountains and deserts, possibly, I don't know. It'd be confusing beyond all recognition. It'd be like being in an episode of Doctor Who in many ways, in which time has been altered and all manner of strange things have happened, and then I'll throw up and faint. Okay, next question comes from Brooke Jonas, and Brooke asks, do you like or have you heard of the Struts? They're a great British rock band and they embody Britpop and classic rock and roll at the same time. Yes, I have now heard of the Struts, thanks to you, Brooke, and I took a listen to them throughout the week. They're good, aren't they? They remind me, and I think a lot of people were saying this in the comments, they kind of remind me of Queen. The lead singer looks a little bit like Freddie Mercury. They sound like a lot of bands, like The Strokes, even the Stereophonics as well. I got a hint of that. So I hope that they start getting more mainstream success, and I'll listen out for them. I've downloaded their album on Google Play, and I've listened to it once, and I already remember 2 of the songs. That's a good sign. So after the second listen, hopefully it'll be the greatest album of all time. Probably not. That is Rubber Soul by the Beatles. That'll never change. But that is another story for another day. Mark Oldgeezer, what do you think about Stephen Fry? In my opinion, he's one of the great thinkers of our day. Yes, he is, and yes, he is. I only needed to say that once. But he is one of the great thinkers of our day. And other than that, he's somebody that I grew up with. I watched Blackadder religiously as a kid, and still watch him to this day on YouTube all the time, giving his views on philosophy, life, the universe, and everything. I realised it was Douglas Adams that coined that phrase, although, of course, Stephen Fry himself did do the narration for the audio version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Could it be more perfect than that? And I have seen Stephen Fry's journey across all 50 states in the US. He beat me to it, I'll get him next time I see him. Although mine is done on a budget. I don't have the BBC's budget. All right, Skye Pratt says, you look better in your videos, clean shaven. I forgot about that. I get lazy on the weekends when I'm filming Ask a Brit and I don't shave. So it's like this a lot, and I feel like Chewbacca today. Don't sound like him, thankfully, and you can understand everything I'm saying. And Skye asks, as a gay man, I have a question about why are there so many slang words for a gay man in England? I don't know, actually, Skye. I think a lot of those words, unfortunately, are quite derogatory in nature, and they sort of originated from a time when, attitudes were a little less tolerant. Because a lot of the areas where, slang has a multitude of words, it's usually around sex or sexuality. So there's a lot of words for, shagging, for example, and all of that. There's a lot of words for genitalia that are slang. I think Brits are kind of secretly shy about sex and sexuality, and often insecure about it. So we come up with euphemisms and stuff like that. And unfortunately, in some cases, we came up with derogatory euphemisms because, unfortunately, that was the time period. But we do have a lot of them. But funnily enough, the one derogatory term I can think of from America means cigarette in the United Kingdom. And the final question today comes from Jamie Lavender. And Jamie says, I live in England and I was wondering, does Boxing Day, coming up, exist in America? Because it is a big part of Christmas in the UK, especially with the Boxing Day sales. It's very true, Jamie. And no, it doesn't really exist in the United States. December 26th. It's not a national holiday here. And it's mainly a day where you just go to work unless your employer is kind enough to let you off. My employer is, so thank you for that. But mostly no. Boxing Day, not a thing here. Now, if you go up north to Canada, it certainly is there. Boxing Day is part of that because of the old Commonwealth. Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, they all celebrate Boxing Day as well. And for my American viewers here, just to explain a bit more about Boxing Day, as Jamie says, Boxing Day sales, it's kind of like Black Friday sales in the UK. And it's the day after Christmas, we get the whole day off. That's one of the traditions to do with that day, as is watching football. It's on. It doesn't matter which day of the week. You will have Boxing Day football on the day after Christmas. It's kind of magical. And that's when the best films are on, right? So Christmas is known for showing good films. They're not always Christmas-themed films. So Sound of Music, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Back to the Future. But when I was a kid, most of them were shown on Boxing Day, I think. And that was always fabulous. To answer your question, Jamie, no, they don't have it here. But I'm determined to infiltrate the American calendar with that very holiday. And that's all we got time for this episode of Ask a Brit. Don't forget to keep your questions coming in the comments below using the hashtag #AskABrit. And please, when this video is done, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, okay? I need other ways to speak to you, you know? What if I'm away and I can't do a video? I can't put a video out and tell you that I'm going to be away. I can tell you that on Twitter and Facebook, not so much Instagram, that's pictures, although I could hold up one of those placards. Never mind. And finally, we are constantly looking to improve our production and our output, and to do that, we need your support. So if you can pledge anything a month, it doesn't matter, $1, $50, $1,000, that would be crazy. Don't do that, unless you're a millionaire. So if you do want to help out this channel in any way, and by that I mean that you can help fund the travel productions around the country, you know, to all 50 states. Your state could be included, unless you live in the UK. But then again, I might be going there too. And also we want to improve the production quality. So a new camera, you know, new sound equipment would be very welcome. And that's what we're trying to achieve through these pledges. And to do that, go to patreon.com/lostinthepond. And I will thank you with 1,000 kisses. Not 1,000, that would be creepy, probably 10. That's still too much. Thank you, bye.